Hello, we're going to continue on with the immune system, which is the second part of chapter 17. And for bandwidth reasons, I am not using my video, plus I'm having a bad hair day. So when we look at the immune system, first off, if you have not watched The Magic Doctor, which is on the Blackboard page, it's a cartoon, it's about 20 minutes, it's family friendly. Watch that first. Very important because it's a nice introduction in a very friendly, cartoony way to go over the whole immune system, especially the external, looking at non-specific and then specific, okay? And that'll give you sort of the ideas before we go into the meat of this one. And also we will be, I'll be talking to this one, referring back to The Magic Doctor, one of my favorite videos, after I show this one. So as we look through it, there are 3 lines of defense that protect your body. And the first line is external barriers. The whole idea of the external barriers is don't allow anything in. So think of things that keep things out. Just a second, I need to call up my learning guide just so I have it here. Things that keep things out. So your skin, very important. And we don't realize it here because our water is so good that because our water is so good, we if I have a break in our skin, we don't get infected through the water. But you may notice it in the summer if you've ever got a bad cut and then you go swimming and you get it all nasty because of the water in the pool or in the swimming pool or in the lake or whatever. Okay, external barriers. So think about every single hole in your body. Your mouth, you have saliva, which is acidic, you have mucus, which is sticky, you have your tonsils, which, oh sorry, tonsils are we're talking about just guarding. Then you have your nose, you have hair to catch things, you have mucus to create snot to catch things. Your ears, you have earwax. Your belly button, well, that doesn't actually go into your body, so that doesn't count. Your urinary tract, your urine is acidic, so this way it will help to prevent your body from bacteria from getting in. Your vagina is slightly acidic, so that will help too. And your rectum, things are usually coming out that way, so it will also prevent it from being attacked. That is your first line of defense. External barriers, do not let it in. Second line of defense is a non-specific immunity, which means your body is attacking anything it sees as non-self. And then your third one is specific immunity. We talked about antigens when we talked about blood types. An antigen is a certain marker. And now antibodies are certain destroyers of certain markers. So specific immunity is towards a specific virus, hence the word specific. Okay, so let's look at, okay, we talk about external immunity or external barriers. Then non-specific, you have phagocytosis. In your bloodstream are neutrophils and macrophages, and these are cells that go around and will kill anything that is non-body cells. Okay, oh, this one's a good video. I doubt it. I'm not sure. I'm just going to stop it until we get. Destroy microorganisms. Okay, so that is a picture of a phagocyte. What I want you to realize is everything is contained inside a membrane-bound sac, and it fuses with a lysosome, again, in a membrane-bound sac. So this is a way for cells to break down and destroy things, but it's all inside a membrane, so it doesn't destroy the cell itself. Good. That is phagocytosis. Next, we have antimicrobial proteins. Antimicrobial proteins are, let me look at the textbook here. These are, again, proteins that specifically attack things. Sorry, non-specifically. It's all non. Anything non is anything that is seen as non-self. It could be good things when you have an allergy, or it could be a bad thing such as a pathogen. Okay. We went through that. Make sure you pay attention to first line, second line, and third line of defense. Okay, there's phagocytosis. Good. Now, when we look at types of phagocytes, we talked about two types of white blood cells that are phagocytotic. These are the neutrophils and the macrophages. The neutrophils will go first, but they have a short lifespan, and then the macrophages will then go, and they're slower, but they do more damage. So the neutrophils travel to the site of infection, and they release cytotoxins or cytokines, which produce chemotaxis. Chemo means chemical, and taxis means migrate. So they migrate out of the cell to the they migrate out of the blood vessel to the cell. Okay, then they squeeze through and they basically attack. Notice the multi-level barbell type nucleus in the macrophage. Okay, and then the macrophage comes along later and will destroy them. So neutrophils first, macrophages are later, and they migrate and they destroy. Okay, good. Now, there are some antimicrobial proteins. One is interferon. Inter meaning between, feron, well, interferon to me interferes. That's how I remember this one. It interferes with the invasion of a viral infection. When viruses infect the cell produces interferon, and interferon will then bind to the neighboring cells, and it will target the production of enzymes, which will then interfere with the binding of the virus to other cells. Okay, then there's something called a complement. The complement system will then, there are a bunch of proteins that will cascade and form little holes in your in the cell. So the complements travel in the blood, and then as soon as there is a foreign particle, they will attack, they will assemble, forming a hole, and then since there's a hole in the cell, usually a bacteria cell, it will interfere with osmosis and things will rush in and it will be damaged. Let me get out the... Okay. Now, what I want you to be aware of here is Not all the terminology behind it, but sort of the general what's happening. So initially, the bacteria will signal one complement, which then signal a bunch of other complements, which join together, punch holes in the bacteria, fluid enters, and then it bursts. So that is the swelling or the function there. Okay, and that is the complement system. And make sure you know all your systems, keep them separate. So you have your interferon, which is a chemical that interferes with viruses binding, a complement system which pokes holes in the bacteria. Okay, next one. Then there's something called natural killer cells. Now, natural killer cells are a special type of lymphocyte and they roam the body, and these have several methods of destroying cells. And it's these natural killer cells that destroy anything foreign, in terms of if you have a blood transfusion or what's the word about an organ transfusion. These natural killer cells will look at the body and notice that it doesn't have this marker. All your anything that's yourself has a marker on it. So the natural killers will mark it. Now, don't mix up the natural killers with the T killers. They're different. Natural killers are non-specific. They will attack anything that is non-self. And there'll be a video in Blackboard, I think, that goes into more detail. You just need to realize that it's non-specific and it's lymphocytes roaming the body and attacking things that don't have your self marker on it. Now, another thing is inflammation. Think about getting a sliver. When you get a sliver, your body will react to it. And if you don't realize you get it, the next day you'll realize there's a little pus. You squeeze the pus and it comes out. That's mild inflammation. When you look at inflammation, this is a large process, but it produces red heat, pain, and swelling. There we go. Got them all. And then there's a fifth one in some lists, which is lack of mobility. So the injured cells will give off histamine. Okay, so this is why you may have heard of an antihistamine, which sinks swelling. That's because anti goes against the histamine. When there's injured cells, it will give off the histamine. The histamine will then dilate blood vessels. And because it dilates blood vessels, more fluid now goes into the area. Then you have a brief period of vasodilation, which causes the capillary walls to separate slightly, and then you have leakiness. Okay, and then you can have all sorts of things go through the spaces and go to the injured tissue. You can also have fibrinogen leaking, so it's ready there if you need it to help wall off the infection as needed. Now, because you have increased blood flow to the area, you have swelling because you have increased fluid because of this leakiness and the histamines causing the leakiness. Because you have extra fluid to the area, it will cause redness because you've drawn more red blood cells to the area. Now, because of the swelling, you will then have pain because it puts pressure on the nerve cells. You will also have, that's the other one I missed, pain, swelling, heat. Heat, because you have all this increased blood flow, you also have heat. And then because of the swelling, you can't bend it. So you have the inflammation. All because it started with the histamines and all the movement of this extra fluid into the area. Now, the neutrophils will then come to this area. We talked about them. They will actively phagocytote and they will increase cytokines. Cytokines are chemicals. Cyto means cell, kine means starting or movement. So cytokines will then summon or call more cells into the area. Then the macrophages come along and they destroy bacteria and they clean up and then they die. And dead macrophages, this is when you get pus. So if you have inflammation, can lead to pus if they die. So a little pus is good. Too much pus is not good. And especially if it's brown, then there's blood in it, and green is a bacterial infection in it. Another thing that can cause the body non-specifically to react is fever. Fever is a heating up of the body and a slowing down of the pathogen, and it's caused by a pyro, means fever, a pyrogen, and gen means creation, so it's a fever creator. And these are the white blood cells again, the neutrophils and the macrophages. Then the hypothalamus can also stimulate prostaglandins. Prostaglandins will then reset the body's temperature to a temperature point. So it's not just the body heating up like heat stroke. The body actually has a reset temperature and it will rise. And it'll rise to a certain point. So a little fever is okay because it's your body heating up to increase the movement of your blood cells, your macrophages, but to decrease the pathogen. Then once the pathogen's gone, your fever will break and the lack of the pyrogen will then reset the point back to normal, and that's when your fever breaks. Okay, now interesting how these cytokinins are a thing being released with COVID, and that's what's causing the fever. Okay, question: non-specific immunity. It's acquired? No. It offers protection against a particular pathogen? No. It's present at birth? No. It retains memory after it being defeated? No. What's the right answer? It's not acquired. I think it's C. C, yes. It's acquired at birth because it comes from your, where does it come from? It's present, therefore it's not. Okay. I think I read that question wrong. Did it say it was acquired before birth? It is present at birth. It's not, well, a minor part is present at birth, and then you get most of your immunity from your mother. Okay, so now we're going to look at two types of specific immunity. So that was non-specific immunity, where it's just attacking no particular order. Now we are going to look at specific. In specific immunity, you are attacking a certain pathogen. You can have it active, and when it's active, your own body makes the antibodies or the T cells. And passive is when the body results in an injection of antibodies. Okay, so you just get them somewhere else. Actively, you make them. Thinking active, you make, and passive, you just get. Okay, good. Passive, you get. Now, those are two classifications. There's also another classification that adds to it, and that is artificial versus natural. In artificial, you are purposely given it, and naturally, it comes from a natural source. Okay, so let's start with natural and passive. Passive means you're getting antibodies, and naturally you're getting them naturally. So you get your antibodies from a mother, a few in the placenta, but most are in breast milk. And that's why it's important to start breastfeeding. And also, I noticed it with cows that it's important when that first that colostrum, which is the first couple of servings of milk, for lack of a better word, from the mother, contain a lot of this passive antibodies. And these are important because they will allow the baby to develop antibodies, or to have antibodies, so it can fight it off until it makes its own. Okay, so that is, then it'll make your own antibodies, and you can make your own antibodies when you're exposed. Okay, so your body does it when you're exposed to a specific antigen. Now, there is talks about herd immunity. Herd immunity is just let the population get the infection, and eventually we will be able to take care of ourselves. This works really well with chicken pox. When I was a kid, my brother came home with chicken pox, and then all the neighbors got together and we all got chicken pox, so this way we'd be immune to it. Because chicken pox is not, it's a very well-known disease, and it is not hazardous. You get a little red mark and it becomes very itchy, but it won't hurt you. There's a lot of discussion about let people get COVID, but we don't know the effects of COVID. So that's why herd immunity and just letting it get this specific antigen is not good. Okay, so naturally it just happens. Then there's artificial. Artificial, you are given it. So in artificial passive, you are given antibodies. A good example of this is snake bite. If you get a snake bite, the venom from the snake, it has antigens which will attack your body. Giving your body the anti-serum, or the serum against it, you are giving the antibodies to destroy the antigens right away. And it is artificial. You didn't make it yourself. You were given it, and you're passive because you were given the antibodies. Okay, last one, artificial active. So active, you are given something which then creates your antibodies. And this good example here is a vaccine, and we'll go through a brief history of vaccines because it's fascinating. And the COVID vaccine is a brand new messenger RNA. So what you're doing is just getting a genetic piece of the messenger RNA, which codes for the spike. So you're not even getting the virus itself. You're just getting a little piece of it. Okay, good. Now, when it comes, so that's non-specific, and I'm going to stop here because we're at 22 minutes, and then I will go into specific, because specific is very confusing, and there are two pathways of it. So for now, we are done. When it comes to immunity, look at first line of defense is barriers. Keep it out with skin and mucous membranes. Then your second line of defense is non-specific, and your second line of defense has your inflammation, you have your interferons, you have your complement system, you have your natural killer T's, or natural killer cells. Okay, so they will non-specifically, oh, and inflammation, non-specifically destroy stuff. And that is the first and second line of defense. The third line of defense, kind of confusing, so I will start a new video for that.